And now, TSPN News with Tom Slivick. Comprehensive news because in today's world, you need more than just sound bites. TSPN, streaming on the World Wide Web, and now on demand at TSPNTV.com. Hi everyone, Tom Slivick, and welcome to TSPN's News for Today. Today we're in News in Depth format, and I'm with John Plasse. How you doing, John?
Good to see you, Tom.
John, we asked you to come by. We wanted to talk about the special meeting that the Board of Supervisors had just a few days ago. What day was that, John?
That was yesterday.
Yesterday. All right. It was
Tuesday. Help me. The April 14th,
it was
I guess.
Tuesday.
15th.
All right. And I think it was tax day.
I believe
All
so.
right.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about what went on at the Board of Supervisors special meeting. So stay with us right here on TSPN. You're watching Amador County's #1 news and sports leader, TSPN. Hi everyone, and welcome back to TSPN. We're going to be talking about the McCollum River, and specifically the bill. It's 1199, brought by Senator Lonnie Hancock, Democrat from Oakland, to designate 37 miles of the McCollum River wild and scenic.
Correct.
Now, for those people out there, the McCollum has been wanting to be placed on the wild and scenic by the federal government for a long time. Now, I'm not saying the federal government wants to do it. I'm just trying to put it in a way. This is for the state bill, so this is a different designation. Tell us, why don't you straighten me out there, John?
I'll try to clarify a little bit.
All right.
The federal government has not requested the designation of the McCollum as wild and scenic. The Foothill Conservancy has here locally. They originally requested federal designation through studies conducted by the Forest Service and BLM as to the suitability and adequacy of the river to be placed in the federal wild and scenic. They took their desires to Washington, D.C., attempting to get that legislation passed without going through their locally elected officials, the Board of Supervisors or our local state legislators, and shopped it around federally. That proved to be unsuccessful, I think largely because at the federal level there is more decorum and respect paid to bills that are brought forth by the area that is affected. In other words, the congressman that represents the area that is the McCollum River would be the one to have to bring the recommendation of that bill for wild and scenic on the McCollum.
And that would be
that would have been Dan Lundgren at the time, and now is Senator McClintock. Well, neither of those, Congressman, you're correct. Neither of those folks has been willing to support a bill for that, largely because your local elected officials have not been in support of that. Several years ago, the Board of Supervisors took a stance of 5-0 unanimous opposition to the designation of the McCollum as wild and scenic under the federal guidelines. Now the Foothill Conservancy has brought forth a desire to place it under the state of California's Wild and Scenic Act, very similar in many ways to the federal bill, but different also in ways. I'll be fair on that. But again, it was not brought through our local elected officials. It was not brought to our local assembly member or state senator. It is being sponsored by, as you stated, Senator Lonnie Hancock from the Berkeley area to sponsor this legislation.
Okay. Now, Calaveras is on the other side of the McCollum River, and Calaveras seems to have a different position, as we're reading. In fact, it's about 180 degrees out from us. It's a unanimous here, not for the designation,
correct,
it would seem, and Calaveras just recently, I guess, voted unanimously for the designation.
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain that, John?
I don't know the explanation of that. I've heard, well, of course, it was brought forward to the Calaveras board by the past president or executive director of the Foothill Conservancy, who's now a Calaveras supervisor, Chris Wright.
Okay.
So he brought that before the Calaveras board. But why the 5-0 vote in favor when we had numerous Calaveras residents at our hearing yesterday, some of which wished that their own Board of Supervisors had the level of interest and understanding of this bill and legislation that the Amador Board does.
Okay, John, why was there a special meeting rather than just placing this on maybe next Tuesday's meeting?
Well, because, Tom, this proposed legislation has been sort of backdoored on the residents of Amador County.
Okay.
It did not go through the typical bill vetting process that starts at the start of the legislative session. Instead, this senator from Oakland took a bill that was currently a bill in the Parks and Recreation Department at the state level, gutted that bill, moved it to the Natural Resources Department at the state level, and rewrote that bill in as a Wild and Scenic sponsored bill, completely outside of the normal protocol for bringing bills forward, although I must say it's becoming a tactic that is used more and more frequently. And that has resulted in this sort of need for fast-tracking the timeliness of our response and our efforts on this, because it will be heard in subcommittee on April 29th, this bill, Senate Bill 1199, and presumably, depending on the vote in the subcommittee, will go on to the full Senate for vote there. And our only opportunity to speak against it as the locally elected officials will be at that subcommittee hearing on April 29th.
Okay, now, about how many people filled the Board of Supervisors room yesterday?
Oh, I'd say there was about 60 in there. We had sort of an informal count because the meeting was dragging on, and folks there, many of whom are working folks, were looking at their watches and needing to get on to their workday. And so the chairman asked for a showing of hands in the audience of those that were there to either speak or weigh in as opposed to this legislation, or opposed to wild and scenic designation, or in favor of wild and scenic designation. And there was about a 3-to-1 split there, opposed rather than in favor of.
Okay. So you're basically saying this kind of came out of the wild blue to the board.
It did. Senator Berryhill's aide represented to us, Dana Jorgensen, local fellow here that works for Senator Berryhill. He made the statement that Senator Berryhill was blindsided on the Senate floor about being asked to co-sponsor this bill that obviously had already been through the process I described earlier of being pulled from one department, gutted, and into another department and rewritten by Hancock. And then our senator is asked to co-author it without ever having had an opportunity to speak to the local elected officials who could represent the position of their constituencies.
Okay, and in no way I'm trying to slight Senator Berryhill, but he has not been. We haven't voted for Berryhill. He's been assigned to us since because of redistricting, right?
Correct.
So he's taken us on.
He has, much more so than our current elected Senator Gaines.
Okay, well, Gaines has moved.
Right. He recognizes that his district has changed, so he's focusing there. Senator Berryhill is recognized.
Okay, so in one way, we can't say we're not represented, but we're not. It's not actually elected representation. However,
that's true.
I do feel that Senator Berryhill has been doing a good job for us. Now, how does Congressman Bigelow? State Congressman Bigelow, how have you heard from him?
With our vote yesterday, Tom, was really the first action that we as a board could take, as a board, as an elected body of our local government, to take a position on this bill. So that just occurred yesterday. We're preparing the letter and making all the points that were brought to us yesterday, both pro and con, in our letter to oppose this legislation. And we want to see to it that that is our first line of communication to Senator Bigelow and Berryhill, and we'll go from there in request of their support on this.
Okay, well, this seems like a good time for a break. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll try to get some of those pro and cons that maybe came up at the board, and you can tell us what they were, John.
Very good.
Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break. You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.